Hi, this is Junk Journals 101 supplies, and we're going to talk about signatures. Signatures are a group of papers that are folded, usually in half, but it doesn't have to be in half. But along the fold line, they fit together and then they are sewn into a cover. They're either sewn directly into the spine of the cover or they're sewn onto some sort of either material or cardstock or something that's then fit into the cover. And so that's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you the different papers that you can use for that. Basically, sky's the limit on papers that you can use. The only thing you want to be concerned about is the thickness of the paper. So if the paper is like water color paper, 140-pound, really thick, you can probably only get one paper in a signature. I've made a art journal before, and that's what I did. I did a Coptic stitch on that and made it just one sheet per signature. But for thinner papers, you can do more like 10, 15. Some people have even done 20. It depends on how thick you want your signatures to be and how bulky you want your book to be as well. So, okay, so we're going to talk about a few things here. One of the things is this is from a thesaurus. This thesaurus I thought would be really cool, which it will be, but and most people, when they use Dictionary of Thesaurus, they tear the pages out of the book like this and then glue it in, fold it in half, and glue it in sideways, which is good. Nothing wrong with that. You can also run another piece of paper or washi tape or tracing paper or anything like that, glue it to where you can fold it in half here, and then it will open like a normal book with it for that. But when I was tearing this book apart, I came across something that I wanted to talk about a little bit. Now, this book, when it was put together, I thought it was sewn in because you can't tell the difference between one that is sewn and one is glued. Like I said before, you can tell the difference like if the book block itself is glued to the spine of the book and how hard it will be to destruct the book. But I got into this one, and each individual sheet of paper, this was the top one, and see, it looks like just a normal sheet of paper, but there's no holes where the threads would have gone. So they took and they glued each one of these. They put a thin line of glue down across here and glued them together. And that's how they put their signatures together, which that is cool. You just normally don't come across books like that. At least I don't. So, but that can happen. The top pages are real good. I think I'll be able to use it for just to poke holes and actually sew into a book. But the bottom pages, I'll probably have to do something with them, run a piece of paper, something, because it kind of, see, it kind of split. There you go. Split in the middle with that. So, but it's still usable. Just run some glue, something down across here to do it, and they'll go in the book just fine. So those you can use. Another piece of paper that you can use is the brown packing paper from like when you get stuff in the mail. Amazon uses a lot of the brown paper. I think Walmart uses a lot of the brown paper in the boxes to take up room and stuff like that. And so save this because this works. You can even glue it down and repair pages with it. You can make pockets with it. You can make pages out of it and everything like that. So you can, I've even made covers with it, wrapped it around a cover of a book to make a book with it. So it's really versatile. Another paper that you can use is the, of course, scrapbook paper or decorative cardstock. This paper works. This one is white on the back and then has a print on this side. It's also done in the tall version, so not all the papers are going to be orientated the right way. Some of the fairies are going to be wrong butterflies will be flying wrong way, you know, those type of things. So you'll have to deal with that when you do it. But you can actually fold it, like if you took it and folded it, sorry, I'm not on camera. There we go. Folded it in half and cut it off where you wanted. It would just make a short little page in there, and then you could make a pocket. You could use a punch along the edge and do a decorative edge, those type of things with it. But so that's the scrapbook paper. You can also use filler paper, just regular notebook paper. One thing about this is that when you fold it, the lines are going to be running up and down. Some people like that, and that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want your lines to go the normal way, like for writing and stuff like that, there's a couple options that you have. One is you can make one side shorter, like your fold here along the red line, and then sew it in there. This will be short on one side, and then it'll be longer on the other side, which I can demonstrate that. And then the other option is to glue two of them together to make your fold. And then the other option would be to use a composition book for your notebook paper. The good thing about composition books is they are sewn together. So they're really easy to go in and clip the strings and actually pull the pages out. When you pull the pages out, you have big sheets to use of paper. So I'll demonstrate that here. The other option that you have too is the covers. Like this one's really, really hard, so it makes a really good book board to use, and you can make a cover out of the cover of them. So the whole book itself is actually usable. And this little tape here, it usually just peels off, or you can just leave it on, cut it off, and that could be part of your book. So, and then you could sew it into the spine or whatever you wanted to do with that one. This composition book is this one is a little softer, but you could actually cut this off, fold this in half this way, and make a small cover for a book as well. And that would work. What I do is I usually just pull this off, and you can see it's cardboard all the way around there. You can see it is sewn in there. And so what I usually do is I fold this back, take my X-Acto knife, and I run in here and pop these threads. And this is going to be like grass growing, but it doesn't take too long. Just to pop them out. Sorry, it's hard for me to see. I think I'm going to have to move my camera for the next one, so I can get up closer to see. Okay. And then the inside should just fall right out. And then you have this here. This is actually one full sheet. Now this sometimes gets hard to use, but you can always cut that off and whatnot and see. And then you have your tape here that just pulls off. And it is then taken care of. And then you can just pull the strings out. Usually the strings come off of the tape though, because it's stuck to the tape. So they put the tape there to use it. So, but that is there for use. And then you have this. Now what I usually do to find the center, I just go in, open it up, and this technically is one large signature. See how the pages are folded together? And then it's machine sewn in here. So they have a huge machine that goes through and just sews it right down the middle. But that is one signature because all these pages fit together and are sewn together in one fold. That makes a signature. And that's what we're going to attempt to do in the new ones. Now for us, if you try to put this many pages together and sew it by hand, you go nuts. That's the reason why we usually say that there's a limit, because as you start sewing in the pages, you'll see the more pages you have, the more difficult it is to sew in those pages. So because everything can get moved around and whatnot. The nice thing about these, though, is you have one big sheet of paper. The lines are running the correct way. You can cut it down to whatever size you need, and then you have a way to sew it in here. Now, some people say that these holes make it weaker to sew in, but I've never found that. I've had two that I resewed pages into that I use daily, that I have never ever had them fall apart, ever. And so, and I just did a basic pamphlet stitch on them, and it was perfect. So I used it for the one book I've used for 3 years almost, and it hasn't showed signs of falling apart at all. So this is my favorite option, is composition books. They're inexpensive, it's good paper, and you can cut it down to whatever size you need. It's easy to cut, those type of things. So we will use some of that. This is another thing. You can get pads of paper. This one is, what do they call this? Sketch pad. It's 9 inches by 12 inches, so you will have to cut it down. It says it's a medium weight paper. That's all it says. But it's just blank paper that you can sketch on. But it's a nice weight. It's a really nice weight. It's got a nice feel to it. I like the feel of paper. I don't know about y'all, but I really like the feel of paper. I like different textures and weights and everything. Colors, and so I like the way that feels in there. So you can get pads of paper that way. I think this one was on sale. I got this one from, oh Lord, it's been a while since I've got this one. I think you can find these at Walgreens. Amazon has different pads of paper. They have ledger paper, those type of things that you can go over and get. The other option that you have too for the notebook paper is for lines on your paper. Avery has these little papers. I don't even see, they're hole punched to go in one of those, the little half notebooks. So this is technically 8.5 by 5.5 approximately. So it's basically an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper folded in half basically, and then they make notebook paper out of it to fit in those little mini notebooks. It'll fit in a 3-ring notebook or a what is that, 7-ring notebook? 7-ring notebook. And so what I do with these is, because I like the orientation the way it is I take a piece of copy paper, and as you can see, the copy paper has, I've taken a punch, a decorative punch. It's 2 inches here. I fold it in half so it's 1 inch, and then I punch it together. I fold it in half and punch it together. And then I take and glue the mini notebook paper to each side of the fold, right down that fold line. And then what I'll do when I'm ready to sew it in is I'll just punch my holes and they're ready to go. Now you can make this larger. So as you can see, I left it open. So you can make this larger in here, and it can work as a tuck as well. So that's an option that you have too. So, but that works really well. And this is what I was saying about the thesaurus paper. This is probably one of the things I'll do to fix that middle, to reinforce it, is just run a strip of the thin copy paper. It doesn't add a lot of bulk to your notebooks, which is really, really nice, but it does give you some strength to strengthen the paper. Or it takes 2 smaller sheets of paper and makes them where you can fit them in the book easily. So that one's already folded in half for us. So the other thing is doilies. Doilies are really pretty. They make pretty tucks. They are pretty sewn into a journal, just as an extra page in there, to where it's just a pretty decoration. This is resume paper. It's like a cotton paper. I don't know. They call it resume paper. I've had it for years. I got it back in the 80s. Yeah, late 80s, probably early 90s. And so it's even watermarked, but it's kind of a, I don't know, it's a different feel. It's a different texture, a different feel. So I'll put that in there. And then the other thing is these. This is junk mail that you get. I get prescriptions, and so I have all kinds of the medicines and stuff like that that I get. So I use these in my junk journals, and I'll show you how to cover some of this. If you don't want all this wording and all that stuff in there, it's really cool to have all that stuff. And so there's a lot of these that you can use. Different junk mail, different invoices or receipts. This one's really pretty. I thought this was really pretty from her store. It has a rose and a bird on it. I have a couple of these, and this is really nice to where you could probably cut these out and actually use them throughout your book as a different decoration too, if you'd rather, instead of folding it in half and using it in your book. Colored paper works really well. Different notices that you get, those type of things. Graph paper. I just pulled this out of one of the book, and you can leave this up here at the top. Just leave it, fold it in half, put it in your book. More receipts, a purple flyer that we had got, and another Amazon receipt, and then envelopes. These envelopes like this are really nice. I like these a lot to put in books. There's a couple options that you have. One is you can sew them in this way. Like if the flap is good enough, this could be your fold, and you could sew them in and then attach something on the other side in your signature. Or I personally liked sew them in this way. So you fold them in half like this. And then what I do is I just take my little scissors and I cut a V right there. Pull it up. Make sure you're cutting all the way to the fold on each side. And then cut it off. Just like that. Now this allows you room to sew it in, and then you still have room to open up your flap. So on each side. So you can also, you can cut that a little bit more if you feel like you need a little bit more room in there. Just go in and cut this away just a little bit more. But it usually doesn't hinder it any at all going into your book. The other option is that you can cut it off. Just cut off the flap, you have an open thing. But sometimes I like, when I get into my book, to be able to close this down, put a decorative piece of paper or something over, or just glue this down and open up this side. So I have something coming out this way instead of always going in and out the top way. So just save your envelopes and whatnot. And those are nice little envelopes. These envelope like this, the large size envelopes, they work. Reusable envelopes. And then this here, it's kind of shiny, but it'll still work. You can sew this in here, and then on the other side you have a flip out that you'll be able to use, put something on, make a journaling spot, those type of things later on in your signatures. Okay, so let's put a signature together then. So let's take, we have an envelope, we have this thing, we have this envelope, and then what I do is you just start folding your paper in half to make it. Now, as you can see, my book is going to be 8.5 by 11, folded in half. So we end up with 8.5 here by 5.5. So that means my cover is going to have to be 9 by 12. So that's basically a policy envelope size. And to sew in the papers, because I want my cover to go around my papers that I have. And you don't always have to fold the words to the inside. Fold some of them to the outside. Just fold them all. This one's already pre-folded, so So that helps out. Okay, let's get some of these different papers down here. Okay, this one I folded a little different. So see how I folded it where it's not completely in half? And then I can go back in on this side and fold this in and make a flip out or a tuck on that. So it works. And then this one we'll fold. I'm just go ahead and fold that one in half. It has a really cool texture. I don't know how to explain it. It feels like cotton. That resume paper? The resume one? The resume one, yeah. Now this one I'm going to fold in half with that. Okay. It's Walmart. The sketch pad is Walmart. Oh, cool. Okay, so then what you do is you just start taking your papers and fitting them together. Now, if you have any decorative papers that you want to use, scrapbook paper, you would do the same thing. You would fold them in half, however you want to do it, and start fitting them together. The important thing in a signature is make sure the folds are together. That's the basic thing of a signature, is making sure the folds are together. Okay, let's do a piece of notebook paper in the middle here. Now you can see that this one's really large. Again, you can fold it over if you wanted to, or you can cut it down to size too. It's whichever you prefer. You don't have to stick with what it is. Okay, so let's stop there. It's pretty good for a signature. And then let's do the next one. I'm going to start with the notebook paper. So sometimes you have to refold these to get a definite fold line because they do, you know, curve around them because they come out of such a large signature. Okay, let's fold this in the middle there. We'll have the doily. And that cotton paper, purple paper. Thank you. We'll do this notebook paper. And that's paper. Okay. So there's a second signature. And we're going to put this paper in there. So say you forgot to put something in there. You just open up your signature wherever you want it to be and wherever you want this paper to go. And then you come in and you lay that paper in there and then just put the rest of the signature on top of that so that they're all in the fold. Same with the envelopes. If you say, oh, I forgot to put my envelope in here. Where do I want my envelope? Let's see. Let's put my envelope in here, right in the middle, there. And we can put that together. Okay. And then this envelope I'm going to fold in half, and I'm going to put it in my first signature. So I take my first signature and open it up. You know, I think I'm going to go right in there. It doesn't always have to be in the middle. You can push it down to the bottom if you like, or you can pull it up to the top more if you want. Or you can put 2 smaller envelopes in there. So with it. So that is a signature. Papers folded together, ready to have the holes poked to be hand sewn into a thing, or like we learned from that thesaurus book, run a bead of a thin line of glue down each page and put them in together. Now when you do that, you have to make sure that you're going to fold right together, and then you're going to have to clip them together until they're glued, until it's dry. So that is a little harder to do. The other option too with doing this, I want to go over a few tools that help me with it, is a bone folder. This is a Teflon. It's called the bone folder. It's a Teflon bone folder. It's non-stick. When you use a regular plastic bone folder, it makes the paper shiny, and so I've opted with this. This is expensive. It's a one-time lifetime purchase though. There is no way that I'll ever use this bone folder to the point that it falls apart. So, but it is an expensive, it was an expensive purchase for me. A regular bone folder, something like this, very inexpensive. You could use a butter knife. You could use the handle of your scissors. The handle of your scissors, the big scissors, they work. Just something to crease it. If you have a ruler, something like this will help you go along the edge, and you can use it to smash it down. You will get some coloration. Whatever's on your ruler will come off on your paper though. Just be forewarned. With that, I do find a ruler. There's the Tim Holtz ruler. That's a centering ruler, and this is a Fiskars. And what I mean by a centering ruler, as you can see, there's a 0 here in the center, and that helps you find the center of your paper. So this one paper here is, the center would be 2.5. Nope. 2, and see, and you get the same equal marks on each side, and then that's the center of your paper. So when we start doing the holes for the signature, and I do that for the binding, I'll show you with the centering ruler. But a centering ruler is very important for that if you measure. If you don't measure, then I can show you how to do it without measuring at all. So if that's the way you want to go, because some people don't like to measure, and I'm cool with that. So I'm just one of those people that measure. I always have, and I probably always will. So the other option that you need too is a pencil or a pen so that you can mark your holes. So, but a book, getting back to the signatures, a book block is a number of signatures stacked together to form a book block. And that's what they are. So, okay, so this is going to be on signatures right now. When I do the binding video, then I will get into punching holes and using the awls and using what kind of tools that you need to use for that too. Probably what I'll do is do these first videos first, and then come back and we'll do the nitty-gritty on punching holes and signatures, you know, sewing signatures and stuff like that. So that I'm not giving you. I know sometimes I like to talk a lot, and so the videos get kind of long. So let me know if that's too annoying too, and I'll be happy to work with y'all. So I hope you've enjoyed so far. Have a great day. Enjoy.